Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and I'm currently doing a series on my visit to the UK, in which I spent 2 days in London, England, and 2 weeks traveling around Scotland visiting distilleries and meeting up with a few whiskey tubers. So on my 5th day, I was in Campbellton, and I visited Springbank Distillery and Glen which are owned by the same company, and they're neighbors, like right next door. They share a warehouse. Already covered those in previous videos. You might want to check those out. Well, about 4/10 of a mile, or a 10-minute walk from Springbank and Glen is Glen Scotia Distillery. Glen Scotia Distillery was founded in 1832, and it has changed hands and been opened and reclosed and opened and closed and opened and closed and run intermittently, off and on, than more times than I care to count. But in 2014, it was bought by the Lochloman Group, and they have put some serious investment into it. And currently, the general manager is Ian McAllister. When you go to a lot of different distilleries and you do tour after tour after tour, you get a lot of repetition, you hear a lot of the same thing over and over again. So what I tend to do is look for the things that are unique in individual distilleries. Something in the process they do a little bit differently. Some distilleries malt their own barley, very few, about 8 of them. Some of them use sort of a rack and trowel mash tun. Some use the lauter or semi-lauter. In fact, those are the most modern and most common. So in a video I'm going to show you in just a second from photos and video that I took during my tour, there's a couple things you're going to see that are unique. One is the old sort of rake and trowel system, which basically it's like kind of like, imagine fingers going around a circle around the mash tun. And what you'd see in other videos is one that's more of a rake like this, just like blades almost that go through it. So just 2 different styles. The second thing is, probably most unique, is the way in which they age their whiskeys. Typically a barrel is on its side, the bunghole is drilled onto the side, the barrel heads are faced out to the sides, but Springbank, to maximize the use of space, has their casks standing up and on a pallet and then banded. So the convenience is, or the benefit is, they're maximizing space because it's all very tightly close together, and they can move casks around very easily by using a forklift, and so that has the benefit. The disadvantage is majority of distilleries in Scotland are not using new oak. So they're using casks that already had a bunghole put into them on the side, right? A lot of them coming from Kentucky or coming from Spain, right? Or Portugal if they're doing some port cast finish and so forth, or wine cast finish. But what they've done is, and you'll see it in the video, is they plugged up the normal bunghole and then drilled another hole on top, which is kind of unique. So everything is banded on a pallet. All the bungholes are now on the barrel heads. And the advantage is they can move things around real easily. The challenge, however, is, because it's an odd way of doing casks, if there's a leak, they can't get in there individually with individual casks like you can in a normal distillery. Instead, they have to pull the whole pallet down, take the banding off, and then move all the casks to find out which one is leaking. So, like everything else in life, it has some pros and cons, but I just thought it was really, really interesting. So go ahead and check out this tour, and we'll get into the whiskeys. So after doing a tour of the distillery, I did a tasting in the tasting room, and we tasted the 15-year-old, the Victoriana, which you can get here in the United States for about $80 or so. Then we did a 18-year-old and then a single cask shot bottling. So if you go into the tasting room, you'll see off to the side a cask, and if they haven't already got bottles filled up from that cask, you can do your own bottling. But when I was there, they already had previously bottled some whiskey from that cask. And then this bottle, this is the Glen Scotia Single Malt Scotch Whiskey Classic Campbelltown Malt Warehouseman's Edition. This was selected by Ian McAllister, who is the distillery manager, and it was aged in recharred American oak and then first fill Oloroso sherry. The print on the label is really small, so I'm having difficulty reading this. It's bottled at 56.2% alcohol by volume. It was distilled in September 2005 and bottled in August 2018. Now, as you can see, I've made my way down through this bottle, and I want to say, if you should happen to get a bottle of this, you're going to want to hide it somewhere, because every time you see it, you're going to be tempted to just grab it. This is an absolutely superb whiskey. Now, a lot of the notes on it, the aromas and the flavors, are going to remind you of standard sherried, finished or aged whiskeys. You get your dried black fruits, fig, dates, raisins, caramels, almost like a butterscotch, a fudge, crystallized honey, a little bit of spice, a little bit of ginger, like ginger cookies or ginger, cinnamon. There's definitely a chocolate note there. A little bit of a mocha. Loads of vanilla. Perhaps some caramelized apples. All right, on the palate. Now, a lot of the notes that I just rattled off probably sound familiar. Probably sound like a lot of other single malt scotches that are aged in Oloroso sherry. It's the texture of this whiskey that just really sells it. It's not syrupy. It's not that thick. It's not oily. But it has some weight, some viscosity, and this mouth-coating effect. The result is flavors that stick around a really long time. Absolutely delicious. And it really makes your mouth water and want to sip some more. There's also a little bit of saltiness. You might think of it's almost like a Snickers bar, You got your nougat and your salted peanuts, and you got the sort of the chocolate and maybe caramel inside and chocolate on the outside. It kind of reminds you of that. Now, it's fairly sweet, has an insanely long finish, nice development. It is an absolutely spectacular whiskey. And 2019 is going to be a challenging year for me because I'm having so many whiskeys that are contenders for the top 10 for 2019. What am I going to give in terms of score? I'm going to go 93 points. 93 points. This is absolutely spectacular. Now, of course, because this is a distillery-owned edition, it's going to be difficult to get your hands on. However, one of my main motivations, or what I want to do, is inspire you and motivate you to go to Scotland, make the trip. Now, I know it's difficult, but if you ever get the opportunity, you want to go, and Campbelltown is absolutely fantastic. I would like to spend more time there. My way of touring distilleries is I have a bucket list, and I'm trying to hit as many as possible to maximize my time there. Now, if I lived in the UK, I'd probably slow down just a little bit, take my time, knowing I could get back there fairly easily. But being on the other side of the pond, the other side of the planet, got one time a year that I can go over there, I try to maximize the use of my time. I would like to spend time there doing tours of or looking around at closed distilleries, get more of a sense of the place, because I absolutely loved Campbelltown. But my next stop was even more fascinating, which was the Isle of Arran. Alrighty, we'll get into that in my next video. Hey, if you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you haven't yet subscribed, but you like watching my videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up, share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and other social network channels. And until next time, cheers. Hey, if you like my review, be sure to check out these other whiskey videos.